In the summer of 2023, 7 pieces of footage appeared online showing unexplained encounters in open water. Within 8 hours, all of them were gone, not flagged, not made private, deleted entirely, from YouTube, from TikTok, from Facebook, from Reddit, sometimes within minutes of each other, as if someone was watching every upload in real time. The accounts that posted them went silent. Some disappeared altogether, and the few people who managed to save copies before the removals described the same thing: something in the water that didn't move like an animal, didn't surface like a mammal, and in at least 3 cases appeared to turn toward the camera as if it knew it was being recorded. This isn't about viral hoaxes taken down for violating community guidelines. These removals were too fast, too coordinated, and too thorough. By the time discussion threads started forming, the original files were already scrubbed from multiple platforms simultaneously, a technical feat that typically requires either automated detection systems or direct platform intervention. Tonight, we're reconstructing what was captured in those videos using archived screenshots, cached forum posts, and descriptions from the handful of viewers who saw the footage while it was still live. We're tracing the deletion pattern itself, the timestamps, the methods, the platforms involved, and we're asking the question that no one has been able to answer. If this was ordinary content moderation, why did it happen so fast, across so many sites, without a single official explanation? 7 videos, 8 hours, 0 trace. We begin with what disappeared and why someone might have wanted it erased. The deletion pattern started on June 14, 2023, at approximately 9:47 p.m. Eastern Time. A TikTok user posted a 29-second clip filmed from the deck of a sailboat off the coast of North Carolina. The video showed open water at dusk, relatively calm seas, and then, according to viewers who saw it before removal, something pale breaking the surface roughly 20 meters from the boat. Not breaching like a dolphin, not bobbing like a seal, surfacing vertically, shoulders first, the way a human would rise in a pool. The clip stayed online for 6 hours and 40 minutes. Then, it vanished. The account that posted it went private within the next 2 hours and hasn't posted since. By itself, unremarkable. People delete content constantly. Accounts go dormant. But what happened next is harder to dismiss. 18 hours later, a YouTube channel belonging to a fishing charter service in British Columbia uploaded dashcam-style footage from their boat's mounted GoPro. The description mentioned strange sighting near Vancouver Island. Anyone know what this is? Within 4 hours, the video was removed for violating YouTube's community guidelines. The channel owner appealed. The appeal was denied. When asked which specific guideline was violated, YouTube's automated response cited spam, deceptive practices, and scams, a categorization that made no sense for wildlife footage. The channel's other videos, dozens of them, all fishing content, remained untouched. Only that one upload was flagged. 2 days later, 3 separate videos appeared within a 6-hour window, one on Facebook from a recreational diver in Greece, one on Instagram from a passenger on a commercial ferry in the Philippines, and one on Reddit's r/creepy encounters from someone claiming to have filmed something near a Louisiana dock at night. All 3 described or showed, depending on who you ask, figures in the water that didn't correspond to known marine life. All 3 were removed within 8 hours of posting. All 3 accounts either went silent or were deactivated shortly afterward. Then came the 2 that make this pattern impossible to ignore. On June 22nd, a live stream on Twitch cut out mid-broadcast. The streamer was a commercial fisherman who occasionally live-streamed his work for a small audience, usually fewer than 50 viewers. That night, he was hauling nets about 15 kilometers off the coast of Maine. The stream was uneventful for nearly 40 minutes. Engine noise, the sound of machinery, occasional comments to the camera. Then, according to archived chat logs saved by viewers, the streamer went silent. The camera was still running, still pointed at the deck and the water beyond. Several viewers noted in the chat that something was near the boat. Others typed variations of "What is that?" and "Is that a person?" The stream cut to black. 14 seconds later, the broadcast ended. The Twitch account was deactivated within 3 hours. The streamer's other social media profiles, Facebook, Instagram, a personal Twitter account, went dark within 24 hours. One viewer saved a screen recording of the chat log. In the final 30 seconds before the stream died, 8 different people typed messages ranging from confusion to alarm. One wrote, "He's staring at it." Another wrote, "It's looking at the camera." The last message before the stream cut out was a single question: why isn't he moving? The 7th and final video appeared on June 28th. It wasn't a civilian upload, it was security footage, allegedly from a harbor camera in a small commercial port in northern Maine. The clip was posted to a local Facebook group by someone claiming to work in port administration. The video reportedly showed the dock area at night, empty except for moored boats and still water. Then, according to the post, a shape moved through the frame, humanoid, pale. Close enough to the camera that details were visible. The post stayed up for less than 2 hours before it was removed. The account that shared it was deleted the same day. The Port Authority, when contacted by local news, stated that no security footage from that date existed due to technical malfunction. The camera system had allegedly been offline for maintenance, except the footage had already been seen by at least 40 members of the Facebook group, and several of them independently reported the same thing. The camera's timestamp was clearly visible in the corner of the frame. There was no gap in the recording, no sign of malfunction. Just 12 seconds of something in the water, moving in a way that shouldn't have been possible, close enough to the lens that you could see its face. By July 3rd, every piece of footage was gone. Every account that had posted them was either deactivated, private, or scrubbed of the original upload. And no platform, not YouTube, not TikTok, not Facebook, not Twitch, issued a public explanation for any of the removals. 7 videos, 7 different uploaders, 4 different countries, all removed within 2 to 8 hours of going live, all from coastal locations, and all depicting, according to the scattered witnesses who saw them, the same general thing, something in the water that moved with intention, that surfaced near humans, and that appeared, in multiple cases, to be aware it was being filmed. The speed is what makes this more than coincidence. Automated content moderation exists, but it typically flags videos for review. It doesn't remove them instantly across multiple platforms unless they match an existing database of prohibited content. Copyright violations, violent extremism, child exploitation, categories where the material has already been identified and fingerprinted by platform algorithms. So what database did these videos match? If they were hoaxes, why coordinate removal instead of letting them circulate and debunk themselves? If they were misidentifications, seals, divers, driftwood, why remove them at all? And if they were genuine documentation of something unknown, who has the access and authority to scrub them from multiple corporate platforms within hours, without leaving a single official explanation? We don't have the footage, but we have the pattern. And the pattern suggests that someone, somewhere, recognized what these videos contained before most of the people watching them even understood what they were seeing. The fisherman's name was Jacob Carlisle, 42 years old, licensed commercial fisherman operating out of Portland, Maine for 16 years. He'd been streaming his work sporadically on Twitch since early 2022, not for profit, just ambient company during long solo trips. His audience was small, regulars in the chat, no drama, no controversy, just engine noise, weather commentary, and the occasional haul. The stream on June 22nd started at 8:14 p.m. Eastern Time. 73 viewers tuned in over the course of the broadcast, higher than his usual count, but not dramatically so. For the first 38 minutes, nothing about the stream was unusual. Carlisle worked his nets, talked about fuel prices, answered a question about bait. Standard content. At 8:52 p.m., the chat shifted. One viewer typed, "Something in the water left side." Another followed 12 seconds later. "What is that?" Carlisle didn't respond immediately. The audio suggests he was focused on handling equipment, not watching the chat. But at 8:53 p.m., his voice stopped mid-sentence. The sounds of work ceased. The only audio for the next 19 seconds was the engine idling and water slapping the hull. The camera was mounted on the wheelhouse, angled to capture both the deck and a portion of the surrounding water. It wasn't pointed directly at whatever the viewers were reacting to. The framing suggests it was slightly off to the port side, just within the edge of the lens's field of view. But the chat log makes it clear that something was visible. Multiple viewers reacted simultaneously, which rules out a single person trolling or misinterpreting shadows. At 8:34 p.m., Carlisle's voice returned. He said something indistinct. The archived audio is muffled, possibly by wind or the microphone's position, but the tone registers as quiet, not alarmed, not excited, quiet in the way someone goes still when they don't want to be noticed. 17 seconds later, the chat exploded. 8 messages in rapid succession. "Oh my God. WTF is that? Jake, what is that? It's looking at the boat. Is that a person? He's staring at it. Why isn't he saying anything? It's looking at the camera." At 8:54:16 p.m., the stream cut to black. 14 seconds of dead air followed. Then the broadcast ended. The Twitch VOD, the archived recording that normally remains available after a stream ends, never went live. Typically, VODs appear within minutes of a broadcast finishing. Carlisle's stream ended, and no recording was published. The channel itself remained active for roughly 2.5 hours. Then, at 11:27 p.m., the account was deactivated. By 3 p.m. the following day, Carlisle's Instagram account, which had been active with regular posts documenting his catches, went private. His Facebook page, which had included photos of his boat, his dog, and links to his Twitch streams, was deactivated. A personal Twitter account that he rarely used but had maintained since 2015 disappeared entirely. We don't have video of what happened, but we have the reaction of 73 people who were watching in real time, and we have the forensic evidence of how fast everything was erased afterward. 2 viewers saved partial screen recordings. Neither captured the moment that triggered the panic in the chat. Both started recording after noticing the commotion, which means they only preserved the final seconds before the stream cut out. What they did capture was audio, the low rumble of the engine, the faint sound of water, and Carlisle's breathing, audible over the mic. He wasn't speaking, he wasn't moving equipment, just breathing, steady and shallow, the way you breathe when you're trying not to make noise. One of those viewers, posting under a now-deleted Reddit account, described what they'd seen before starting the recording. They claimed the shape in the water had risen vertically, pale against the dark surface, close enough to the boat that it was clearly visible despite the low light. They described it as humanoid in silhouette, shoulders, a head, arms, but the movement was wrong, not the bobbing of a swimmer treading water, not the mechanical motion of someone in a wetsuit. It held its position without apparent effort, the way something does when it's standing on the bottom. But Carlisle was fishing 15 kilometers offshore, where the depth exceeds 90 meters. Another viewer claimed the figure turned, not drifted with the current, turned deliberately until it was oriented toward the boat. That's when Carlisle stopped talking. We can't verify those descriptions. We don't have video proof. But the chat log, which was archived by multiple viewers and can be cross-referenced for consistency, confirms that at least 8 people reacted to something that appeared aware of the camera. "It's looking at the boat" was typed at 8:53:51 p.m. "It's looking at the camera," followed at 8:54:02 p.m. Those are not ambiguous statements. Those are not reactions to a floating object or a curious seal. Those are reactions to something that appeared to have intent. The stream ended, the account vanished, and Jacob Carlisle has not posted anything online since June 22, 2023. Attempts to contact him through the business registry for his fishing license went unanswered. His boat, according to Harbor Records, remained docked in Portland for 3 weeks following the stream. Then, in mid-July, it was sold. The new owner, when questioned by online researchers, claimed they'd purchased it through a private sale and had no contact information for the previous owner. Carlisle's disappearance from the internet is total, no statements, no explanations. No indication that he's still operating as a commercial fisherman despite 16 years in the industry and an active license that was valid through 2024. What makes this case different from the others isn't just the live documentation, it's the witnesses. 73 people watched it happen in real time. That's not a grainy video uploaded and removed before anyone can verify it. That's a shared experience, a collective moment where dozens of people saw the same thing simultaneously and reacted with confusion and fear. And within hours, every trace of that broadcast was gone. The technical pattern of these deletions doesn't match standard content moderation. When a video is removed manually, reported by users, reviewed by human moderators, flagged for violating specific policies, there's typically a delay. Hours, sometimes days, depending on the platform's review backlog and the severity of the alleged violation. Manual review leaves a paper trail, report tickets, moderation logs, appeal options, email notifications explaining which policy was violated. None of these videos followed that pattern. The removals happened too quickly and too uniformly across platforms that don't share moderation infrastructure. YouTube's content policy enforcement operates independently from TikTok's. Facebook's review system doesn't communicate with Reddit's. Twitch manages live content differently than pre-recorded uploads. Yet all 7 videos were scrubbed within 2 to 8 hours, most without any notification to the uploaders, and several across multiple platforms simultaneously. That speed suggests automated detection, not human review. Modern platforms use AI-driven content filters that scan uploaded material in real time, checking it against databases of prohibited content. The technology is called digital fingerprinting, also known as perceptual hashing. It works by analyzing the visual and audio signature of a video and comparing it to known reference files. If the system detects a match, the content is removed instantly, sometimes before it even finishes processing for public view. This is how platforms catch re-uploads of copyrighted music, terrorist propaganda, and child exploitation material. The content has already been identified, cataloged, and fingerprinted. When new uploads match those signatures, even if the video has been slightly edited, cropped, or filtered, the system flags it automatically, which raises the question, what were these videos matching? If the footage showed unknown marine life, there would be no existing reference file to trigger removal. If it showed people in the water, swimmers, divers, kayakers, there would be no policy violation. If it was misidentified wildlife, deliberate hoaxes, or simple misunderstandings, the platforms would have let them stay online or issued standard violations for spam or misleading metadata. But that's not what happened. The Greek diver's video was removed from Facebook with a notification citing community standards on violence and incitement, a category typically reserved for graphic injury, threats, or dangerous organizations. There was no blood, no violence, just underwater footage. The appeal was denied with an automated response, and the account was suspended for repeat violations despite having no prior strikes. The YouTube fishing charter video was flagged as spam, deceptive practices, and scams, language normally applied to phishing schemes or fraudulent product promotions. It was a GoPro clip from a working boat. The channel had operated for 4 years without issues. That single upload was the only one removed. The Twitch stream didn't receive a policy explanation at all. The account was simply deactivated, and when the platform was contacted by followers asking what happened, the response was a boilerplate message. This account is no longer active. No details, no option for appeal, no acknowledgement that a violation had even occurred. Automated systems don't make judgment calls, they match patterns. If these videos were flagged instantly by AI filters, that means the filters recognized something specific, a visual signature, an audio frequency, a movement pattern that corresponds to material already classified as prohibited. So what classification did they match? One possibility is that platforms have been quietly training their algorithms to detect and remove footage of unidentified aquatic phenomena, not as a formal policy, not as something publicly disclosed in their community guidelines, but as part of broader content suppression directives that aren't made available to users. We know this happens in other contexts. YouTube's algorithm has been documented suppressing videos on certain political topics without listing those topics as violations. TikTok has admitted to limiting the reach of content from users deemed ugly, poor, or disabled to prevent what they called reduced engagement. Facebook's internal moderation guidelines, leaked in 2021, revealed thousands of micro-categories for content removal that were never disclosed to the public. It's not conspiracy to suggest platforms remove content quietly. They do it constantly. The question is whether they've created a category for this. Another possibility is acoustic fingerprinting. Several of the deleted videos allegedly contained audio, engine noise, water sounds, and in at least 2 cases, vocalizations that witnesses described as unsettling. If those vocalizations carried frequencies or patterns that matched something already flagged in the system, the AI wouldn't need to understand what it was hearing. It would just need to recognize that the audio signature matched a reference file marked for removal. Infrasound, frequencies below the range of human hearing, can be detected by recording equipment even when people don't consciously perceive it. Certain animals produce infrasound as part of their communication. Whales, elephants, even some fish species generate low-frequency calls that travel long distances underwater. If these videos captured similar patterns, but from a source not recognized as a known species, the AI might flag it as anomalous. But that still doesn't explain the speed or the coordination. Flagging unusual audio is one thing. Removing it across YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitch, and Reddit within hours, without human review, without appeals, without explanations, requires either a shared blacklist or direct platform intervention. The third possibility is the most difficult to dismiss. Someone is monitoring for this content in real time, not an algorithm. A person or a team with access to platform moderation tools scanning uploads for specific keywords, locations, or visual markers. When a match appears, they issue immediate takedown requests using internal channels that bypass standard user reporting. This would explain the speed, the consistency, and the lack of policy explanations. It's not automated. It's manual suppression using administrative access. This isn't speculative. Platforms grant this level of access to law enforcement, government agencies, and certain corporate partners. We know from leaked Facebook documents that the company maintains a whitelist of users whose content is exempt from normal moderation and a corresponding blacklist of accounts and content types that are suppressed without public disclosure. Twitter's internal files, released in 2022, revealed direct communication between platform employees and federal agencies regarding content removal requests that were never made public. If a similar arrangement exists for footage like this, if platforms have agreed to quietly remove documentation of unidentified aquatic encounters at the request of maritime agencies, defense departments, or research institutions, it would look exactly like what happened in June 2023. 7 videos, multiple platforms, instant removal, no explanations. The pattern isn't random, it's not algorithmic error, and it's not standard moderation. It's coordinated, efficient, and nearly invisible unless you're specifically looking for it. Which means someone was looking. Someone saw these uploads the moment they went live, recognized what they contained, and moved immediately to erase them before the footage could spread. The question isn't whether these videos were removed deliberately. They were. The question is what the platform's filters recognized that made this footage worth suppressing, and who taught the algorithm what to look for. The harbor footage disappeared faster than anything else in the sequence. June 28, 2023. A Facebook post appeared in a private group for residents of Lubec, Maine, a small coastal town with a year-round population of roughly 1,300 located at the easternmost point of the United States. The group had 240 members, local news, lost pets, road closures, standard small-town content. At 11:43 p.m., an account belonging to someone claiming to work in port administration posted a video file with the caption, "Anyone know what this is? Pulled from the dock camera last night. Security company says it's a malfunction, but this doesn't look like a glitch to me." The video was 12 seconds long, security camera footage, black and white, night vision mode. The frame showed a section of commercial dock, several moored boats, and dark water. Timestamp visible in the lower right corner, June 27, 2023, 3:17 a.m. For the first 4 seconds, nothing moved. Then something rose from the water near the dock's edge. Vertical. Shoulders clearing the surface, pale gray in the night vision contrast, humanoid shape. It didn't pull itself up onto the dock, it didn't swim into the frame. It rose, smoothly, as if standing up from a seated position, except the water there was deep enough to moor a 40-foot fishing vessel. According to members of the Facebook group who saw the video before it was removed, the figure remained stationary for approximately 3 seconds. Then it turned, not drifted, turned with clear intention until it was facing the camera directly. The final 2 seconds showed it holding that position, motionless, facing the lens. Then the video ended. The post stayed online for 1 hour and 47 minutes. During that time, at least 38 members of the group viewed it. 16 left comments ranging from confusion to alarm. Several asked if it was a prank. 2 suggested it might be a diver. One commenter wrote, "That's not a person. Look at the arms." At 1:30 a.m., the post was deleted, not by the user, not marked as removed for violating Facebook's community standards, just gone, as if it had never been posted. The account that shared it was deactivated within 20 minutes. By morning, the video file had vanished from the group entirely, and Facebook's internal search returned no record of it ever existing. But the removal didn't stop there. 2 members of the group had downloaded the video before it disappeared. Both attempted to re-upload it, one to their own Facebook page, one to a regional Maine Reddit community. Both uploads were removed within 30 minutes. No explanations, no warnings. The Facebook re-upload was flagged as violating standards on dangerous individuals and organizations. The Reddit post was deleted by moderators with a note claiming it violated the community's rules against fictional content and creative writing. A third person, who had screen recorded the original post on their phone, tried uploading the clip to YouTube. The video was removed before it finished processing. The notification claimed it violated policies on violent or graphic content, despite the footage showing no visible violence, no blood, no injury. Just a figure in the water, motionless, facing a camera. By the afternoon of June 29th, every attempt to share the footage had been suppressed, and the Lubec Port Authority issued a statement to the local news affiliate claiming that the security camera system had experienced a technical malfunction on the night of June 27th, resulting in corrupted footage that was not suitable for analysis. The problem with that explanation is the timestamp. The video showed a continuous 12-second clip with a visible, uninterrupted timestamp in the corner. No pixelation, no dropped frames, no visual artifacts consistent with data corruption or equipment failure. The footage was clear, stable, and entirely intact. If the camera had malfunctioned, the timestamp would have frozen, jumped, or displayed errors. It didn't. It ran smoothly from 3:17:02 a.m. to 3:17:14 a.m. without a single discontinuity. Moreover, the camera itself, a fixed-position security camera covering the commercial dock, was operational before and after the incident. Footage from earlier that evening and later that morning was reviewed by port personnel as part of routine security monitoring. Only the 12 seconds from 3:17 a.m. were declared unusable, not missing, not overwritten, unusable. That's the language the Port Authority used in their statement, as if the footage existed but couldn't be shown. One member of the Facebook group who worked in network administration and had seen the original post later described the video in a now-deleted blog post. They noted that the figure's proportions were wrong. The arms appeared too long relative to the torso. The head was slightly too narrow. The way it held itself in the water, perfectly vertical, without movement, without bobbing, suggested it wasn't buoyant. It was supporting its own weight somehow, in water too deep for footing. They also described the final 2 seconds, the moment after it turned toward the camera. They said the shape didn't move, didn't sway, didn't react to the small waves visible around the dock pilings, just held its position, facing the lens, as if it understood what the camera was and knew it was being recorded. Then the clip ended. Within 2 hours of posting that description, the blog was taken offline. The author's account on the hosting platform was suspended for violating terms of service. The specific violation was never clarified. The author has not posted anything online since. What separates this case from the others isn't just the speed of the deletion, it's the layered suppression. The original post was removed. Re-uploads were removed. Screen recordings were removed. Even written descriptions of the footage were targeted and scrubbed. That level of thoroughness doesn't happen through standard content moderation. It happens when someone is actively monitoring for specific material and moving immediately to eliminate every copy, every share, every reference. And then there's the Port Authority's response. A technical malfunction is a standard deflection. Plausible, difficult to disprove, easy to repeat without providing evidence. But the statement was issued within 18 hours of the original Facebook post being deleted. That's fast. Faster than most small municipal agencies respond to public records requests or media inquiries. It suggests the Port Authority was either already aware of the footage before it appeared online, or was contacted immediately after the post went live and instructed to issue a denial. Either scenario implies foreknowledge. Either someone at the port knew the footage existed and anticipated it leaking, or someone outside the port was monitoring for this material and moved to contain it the moment it surfaced publicly. 2 weeks after the incident, the Lubeck Harbor's security camera system was upgraded. New cameras, new digital recording infrastructure. Publicly, the reason given was routine modernization. Privately, according to a source who spoke to a regional news blogger, the old system was removed entirely and replaced with a network that stored footage off-site, with access limited to port authorities and a contracted security firm based in Virginia. The contracted firm specializes in maritime security monitoring for commercial ports, naval installations, and offshore energy facilities. Their client list includes the Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Coast Guard. Which brings us to the broader question: why would a small-town commercial dock in Maine require security infrastructure managed by a firm that works with federal agencies? Lübeck's harbor handles fishing boats, recreational vessels, and occasional freight. It's not a strategic asset. It's not a naval facility. It's a working dock in a quiet coastal town with a population of 1,300. The security upgrade wasn't prompted by crime, vandalism, or theft. According to town records, there had been no incidents requiring police response at the dock in over 2 years. The only incident was the footage. 12 seconds of something rising from the water, turning toward the camera, and holding its position long enough to be recorded. 12 seconds that were removed from the internet faster than anything else in the entire sequence. 12 seconds that prompted a coordinated suppression across multiple platforms, a public denial from local authorities, and a security upgrade contracted through a firm with federal connections. That's not a malfunction. That's a response protocol, and the speed of that response suggests it wasn't the first time. If the Port Authority, the platform moderators, and the contracting security firm all moved within hours to suppress the footage and contain the situation, it means they knew what they were looking at. They recognized it. They had a procedure in place for exactly this scenario, which means the footage from Lübeck wasn't an anomaly. It was a leak. One of many, most of which probably never make it online at all. The ones that do get deleted so fast and so thoroughly that they vanish before anyone realizes what they're seeing. The Lübeck video is gone. The account that posted it is gone. The people who tried to share it were silenced or removed, and the dock where it was filmed is now monitored by a security firm that reports directly to federal agencies. Whatever was in that water at 3:17 a.m. on June 27th, someone wanted to make sure no one would see it twice. The diver's name surfaced in fragments across archived forum posts, Reddit threads, and cached Google results that no longer led anywhere functional. Most references called him M, though one deleted Imgur gallery briefly included metadata with a partial username suggesting his first name was Marcus. He claimed to be a commercial underwater videographer based somewhere in the Pacific Northwest, Seattle or Vancouver, depending on which post you read. His work involved filming for marine biology research teams, documenting shipwrecks, and recording footage for environmental impact assessments related to offshore construction. He wasn't famous. He wasn't building a following. His YouTube channel had fewer than 800 subscribers before it was terminated. But between June 30th and July 9th, 2023, he uploaded the same piece of footage 5 separate times across 3 different platforms, and each time he did, the desperation in his accompanying messages escalated. The first upload appeared on YouTube on June 30th at 4:22 p.m. Pacific Time. The video was titled, "Unidentified Figure Filmed at 40 Meters Depth. Need Help Identifying Species." The description was straightforward, almost clinical. Depth, location type, offshore kelp forest, camera specs, time of day. He noted that the shape moved differently than any marine mammal he'd encountered in 12 years of diving, and asked viewers if anyone recognized the locomotion pattern or body structure. The footage itself was underwater GoPro material, murky green visibility, shafts of sunlight filtering down through kelp. For the first 18 seconds, standard scenery. Then, according to descriptions from viewers who saw it before removal, something moved across the upper portion of the frame, not swimming horizontally like a fish or seal, not hovering like a diver, moving laterally, arms first, in a way that suggested propulsion without fins. The video stayed online for 9 hours. Then it was removed for violating YouTube's policy on spam and deceptive practices. No strike against the channel, no option to appeal. Just gone. He re-uploaded it the next day, July 1st, same platform, different title. Re-upload, unknown encounter, 40 meters offshore, removed without explanation. This time, the description was longer. He explained that the first upload had been taken down despite containing no copyrighted material, no graphic content, no policy violations he could identify. He emphasized his credentials, certified commercial diver, over a decade of experience, hundreds of hours of underwater footage uploaded without issue. He wasn't asking for views, he was asking for answers. That version lasted 6 hours. The third attempt came on July 3rd, this time on Vimeo. He titled it, "Why Does This Keep Getting Deleted?" The description had shifted in tone. He explained that YouTube had now removed the video twice, both times citing policies that didn't apply. He noted that he'd reached out to the platform for clarification and received only automated responses. He said he was uploading to Vimeo because he wanted the footage analyzed by people with marine biology backgrounds, and he needed it to stay online long enough for that to happen. He also added something new, a note that 2 other platforms, he didn't name them, had rejected his attempts to upload the file entirely, with immediate takedown notices appearing before the videos even finished processing. Vimeo removed it in 4 hours. The notification claimed it violated their terms of service regarding unlawful or harmful content. No elaboration, no appeal process. The 4th upload appeared on July 6th back on YouTube using a separate account he'd created days earlier. The title was now in all caps. "They don't want you to see this underwater encounter censored multiple times." The description was no longer measured. He wrote that he'd been documenting marine life professionally for years and had never experienced anything like this suppression. He stated clearly that the footage showed something he couldn't identify, something that didn't move like any known species, and that every attempt to share it had been met with immediate removal. He included a direct challenge. "If this violates a policy, tell me which one. If this is a hoax, explain how I faked it at depth with witnesses present. If this is explainable, explain it." The video was removed in 2 hours. The new account was terminated within 30 minutes of the takedown. When he tried to create another account to appeal, YouTube's automated system flagged him for ban evasion and blocked his IP address from registering. The 5th and final upload appeared on July 9th on a niche platform used primarily by independent documentary filmmakers and investigative journalists, a site with far less content moderation infrastructure than YouTube or Vimeo. He titled it, "Final Upload If This Gets Deleted. Again, I'm Done." The description was brief and defeated. He wrote that he didn't know who was removing the footage or why, but that he'd been locked out of multiple platforms, received threatening messages from anonymous accounts, and been told by one platform's support team that his content was flagged for review by external parties, a phrase he'd never encountered before. He also added a final note. "I went back to the location. There's nothing there now, but something was there when I filmed this. I know what I saw, and someone really doesn't want anyone else to see it." That upload lasted 73 minutes before it was taken down, the account was suspended, and Marcus, if that was his name, never posted anything online again. But during those 73 minutes, at least 3 people downloaded the file. One of them, posting on a now defunct forum dedicated to unexplained underwater phenomena, described what they'd seen. The footage showed a figure approximately 2 meters in length, moving laterally through kelp, at a depth the diver had marked as 40 meters. The shape was pale, almost luminous against the darker water. It had limbs, 2 arms clearly visible, legs less distinct, but the proportions were wrong. The arms were too long, the torso too narrow, and the way it moved suggested joint flexibility that didn't match human anatomy. The viewer noted that the figure appeared to pause mid-movement, holding position in the water column without any visible means of buoyancy control. No air bubbles, no fins, no equipment, just suspension, as if it were weightless. Then, in the final 3 seconds of the clip, the figure rotated, slowly, deliberately, until it was facing the camera directly. The description ended there. The forum post was deleted within a day. The user account was banned. And the file they downloaded was corrupted within a week. According to a follow-up post made from a different account, every copy of the video they'd tried to save degraded into unreadable data as if the file itself had been remotely compromised. We don't have the footage. We don't have Marcus's real name. We don't have access to the platform's internal records explaining why his uploads were flagged or who requested their removal. What we have is the trajectory, a professional videographer with over a decade of clean upload history, suddenly targeted with systematic suppression the moment he posted one specific piece of footage. 5 attempts, 5 takedowns, 3 platforms, and a progression from calm inquiry to paranoid desperation over the course of 9 days. The threatening messages he referenced were never made public, but 2 forum users claimed to have received similar warnings after discussing his case. One said they were told to stop sharing links to deleted content or face account suspension. Another said they received a private message, origin unknown, that simply read, "Let it go." What makes this case distinct isn't the footage itself, which no longer exists in accessible form. It's the pattern of suppression and the psychological trajectory it created. Marcus didn't start as a conspiracy theorist. He started as someone asking a straightforward question: what is this? But the response he received, silent, total, and relentless, pushed him from curiosity into alarm, then from alarm into something close to panic. His final message, posted in the description of that last upload, included a sentence that multiple viewers remembered and quoted before it disappeared. "I don't know what I filmed, but someone else does, and they've known for a long time." That's not the conclusion of someone fabricating a hoax. That's the realization of someone who documented something real and then watched as every system designed to share and preserve information turned against him. By mid-July, Marcus's YouTube channel was gone. His Vimeo account was gone. The secondary account he'd created was terminated. The niche platform where he made his final upload suspended his access and issued a public statement claiming they'd removed content that violated agreements with third-party content verification services, a phrase that doesn't appear in their public terms of service and has never been explained. No one has heard from him since. No follow-up posts, no interviews, no explanations. Just silence. And the footage he fought to share, captured at 40 meters depth, showing something that didn't move like any known marine species, something that turned and faced the camera as if aware it was being recorded, exists now only in fragmented descriptions, corrupted files, and the memory of a few dozen people who saw it before it was erased. Whatever Marcus filmed, it was important enough to delete 5 times. Important enough to terminate accounts, block IP addresses, and deploy suppression mechanisms that most users don't even know exist. Important enough that someone somewhere decided it was better to destroy one man's credibility and online presence than to let that 12-second clip remain accessible. The footage is gone, but the response to it remains, and that response tells us everything we need to know about how seriously someone took what Marcus captured in the water that day. The pattern should have been simple: upload, removal, silence. That's how suppression works. Content gets flagged, deleted, and forgotten. The uploader moves on or gets locked out. Clean, efficient, irreversible. But 4 of the deletions didn't follow that pattern. Between July 2nd and July 11th, 2023, 4 separate accounts that had uploaded footage from the sequence, different clips, different platforms, different uploaders, deleted their own content voluntarily. Not because they were forced to, not because platforms removed it first. They took it down themselves, often within hours of posting, and several left messages explaining why. The reasons they gave weren't about platform violations or backlash. They were about the footage itself. One uploader, who had posted a 38-second clip to Instagram allegedly showing something surfacing near a kayak off the coast of Oregon, removed it after 6 hours with a caption that read, "I can't stop watching this, and I need it gone. Something about it feels wrong. Sorry to everyone who wanted to see it." Another, who had shared dashcam footage from a sailboat on TikTok, deleted the video and posted a follow-up saying, I've listened to the audio like 40 times and I feel sick every time. I don't want this on my phone anymore. A third uploader, on a regional Facebook group for Washington state boaters, removed their post with an apology. I shouldn't have shared this. I don't know why I filmed it. I don't know why I posted it. It doesn't feel right having it out there. These weren't responses to external pressure. There were no comments demanding removal, no accusations of hoaxing, no harassment campaigns. The posts had been live for hours, generating confusion and curiosity, but nothing hostile. And yet the uploaders, independently without coordination, decided the footage needed to come down. That's not normal behavior. People don't delete content that's gaining attention unless something compels them to. Guilt, fear, legal threats, or platform warnings. But none of those applied here. What they described instead was a feeling, discomfort, unease. The sense that keeping the footage accessible was wrong in a way they couldn't articulate. Two of them mentioned the audio specifically. The sailboat dash cam video allegedly contained ambient sound, wind, water, the creak of rigging, and beneath that, according to the uploader, something else. A low, rhythmic sound that didn't match the environment. Not mechanical, not organic in a way that corresponded to known marine life. Just low, pulsing, and present throughout the duration of the clip. The uploader described listening to it multiple times, trying to identify the source. They said the first time, it seemed like background noise. The second time, it stood out. By the fourth or fifth listen, it was all they could hear. They wrote that it made them feel like something was pulling at the inside of my chest. That's not a rational response to audio, that's a physiological reaction. The kayaker's Instagram clip reportedly had similar issues. No loud sounds, no obvious vocalizations, just the normal environmental noise of open water, and underneath it, a frequency that several viewers said made them uncomfortable without being able to explain why. One comment posted before the video was deleted read, "Does anyone else feel weird listening to this with headphones?" Another replied, "Yeah, it's like it's inside your head." The uploader removed the video 2 hours later. Infrasound, sound below the threshold of human hearing, typically under 20 Hz, can produce physical and psychological effects without being consciously perceived. Exposure to infrasound has been documented causing unease, anxiety, dizziness, and a sensation described as presence hallucination, where people feel they're being watched or followed despite being alone. Certain animals use infrasound to communicate across long distances. Whales, elephants, even some fish generate low-frequency calls that travel through water far more efficiently than higher-pitched sounds. If the figures in these videos were producing infrasound as part of communication or territorial signaling, the audio wouldn't register as speech or music or anything familiar. It would register as wrongness, a frequency that the brain detects but can't process, creating discomfort that escalates with repeated exposure. That would explain why the uploaders described needing to listen multiple times before realizing something was off. The first exposure might not trigger conscious recognition, but repeated playback, especially through headphones, which deliver sound directly into the ear canal, would amplify the effect, creating cumulative psychological pressure to stop engaging with the material. And if that frequency was embedded in the footage, it would affect anyone who played it back, not just the uploader. Anyone who watched it, listened closely, or tried to analyze the audio, which means the deletion wasn't just about removing visual evidence. It was about stopping exposure to something that had a measurable, adverse effect on the people who encountered it. The fourth case is harder to explain. On July 11th, a Reddit user posted a screen recording of a Snapchat story allegedly showing something in the water near a crowded beach in Southern California. The post stayed live for roughly 4 hours before the user deleted it and edited their account bio to read, "I was wrong to post that, I'm sorry." But before the deletion, several commenters described what they saw. The footage showed a beach scene, people in the water, umbrellas on the sand, normal recreational activity. Then, in the background, partially obscured by a swimmer in the foreground, something rose vertically from deeper water, pale, humanoid, holding position for approximately 3 seconds before sinking back below the surface. The comments noted that no one on the beach seemed to react. No screaming, no pointing, no sudden rush to shore. The figure surfaced, remained visible, and descended again without anyone in the immediate area appearing to notice. One commenter wrote, "Why is no one looking at it?" Another replied, "I had to watch this 6 times to even see it. It's like your eyes don't want to focus on it." That description is consistent with a documented perceptual phenomenon called inattentional blindness, the failure to notice objects or events when attention is directed elsewhere. It's the reason people don't see gorillas in famous psychological experiments or miss obvious changes in magic tricks. The brain filters out information deemed irrelevant to the current task. But inattentional blindness typically applies to unexpected stimuli in cluttered environments, a gorilla in a basketball game, a card swap during a trick. It doesn't usually apply to something as visually distinct as a humanoid figure surfacing in open water 20 meters from shore. Unless the figure wasn't visually distinct, unless something about its appearance, its coloring, or the way it moved made it difficult for the brain to register as an object of interest. Camouflage isn't just about blending into the background. It's about disrupting the visual patterns that the brain uses to identify discrete shapes. Cuttlefish and octopuses don't just change color, they change texture, contrast, and movement patterns to avoid triggering predator recognition. If the figures in these videos possessed similar adaptive traits, skin that reflected light in ways that disrupted edge detection, movement patterns that didn't register as biological, proportions that fell outside the brain's shape recognition algorithms, they could surface in full view of witnesses without being consciously noticed. The eyes would see them. The brain would filter them out as irrelevant data. That would explain why no one on the beach reacted. It would explain why the Reddit commenter had to watch the clip 6 times before they could focus on it. And it would explain why the uploader felt compelled to delete it, not because they were threatened, but because something about the footage triggered an instinctive avoidance response that overrode their desire to share it. Within a day of deleting the post, the Reddit user deactivated their account. No farewell post, no explanation, just gone. The same thing happened with the Instagram kayaker, account deleted within 48 hours of removing the video. The sailboat uploader's TikTok account went private and hasn't posted since. The Washington boater removed their Facebook post and left the group they'd shared it in. 4 separate people, none of whom appeared to communicate with each other, all experienced the same progression: upload, exposure, discomfort, deletion, withdrawal. And in at least 2 cases, the discomfort was explicitly tied to the audio, something in the sound that made them feel wrong in a way they couldn't articulate but couldn't ignore. This isn't suppression by authority, it's suppression by instinct. If the footage contained frequencies or visual patterns that triggered avoidance responses in viewers, responses shaped by evolution to keep humans away from threats they don't consciously recognize, then the deletions weren't about censorship, they were about self-preservation. The uploaders weren't silenced. They were compelled by their own neurological wiring to remove the material and distance themselves from it. That's a different kind of cover-up. Not institutional, not conspiratorial, biological. And if that's what happened, if these clips carried embedded stimuli that made people instinctively want to delete them, stop watching them, stop thinking about them, then the footage didn't need to be scrubbed by platforms or agencies. It scrubbed itself. The people who encountered it did the work of erasure voluntarily, driven by discomfort they couldn't explain and didn't want to endure. Which raises the question, if exposure to this material triggers avoidance responses strong enough to make people delete their own content and withdraw from online spaces, what does that say about the source? Camouflage evolves in response to predation. Animals develop visual and acoustic traits that help them avoid being detected by threats. But these figures aren't being hunted. They're being filmed. They're surfacing near boats, docks, beaches, places where humans are present and recording. So why would they carry traits that make witnesses want to look away, stop listening, and forget what they saw? Unless that's the point. Unless the avoidance response isn't a side effect. It's a feature, a defense mechanism that doesn't prevent detection. It prevents documentation. It lets them move through human spaces, surface in view of witnesses, and remain effectively invisible because the people who see them can't hold the memory long enough to act on it. The footage that stays online gets deleted by platforms. The footage that escapes platform suppression gets deleted by the people who posted it. And the reason they delete it isn't external pressure, it's internal. A growing irrational need to make it go away. That's not a cover-up. That's something selecting against its own observation. And it's working. The deletion pattern had a geographic center. All 7 videos, the sailboat off North Carolina, the fishing charter near Vancouver Island, the Greek diver, the Philippine ferry passenger, the Louisiana dock footage, Jacob Carlisle's stream off the coast of Maine, and the Lubeck Harbor camera, originated from coastal locations. That's expected. Aquatic encounters happen near water, but when you map the civilian footage against maritime incident reports, Coast Guard patrol zones, and naval exercise areas active during June 2023, a different pattern emerges. 4 of the 7 locations fell within 50 kilometers of active U.S. Coast Guard stations. 2 were within 30 kilometers of naval operating areas, and 3, including Carlisle's fishing zone and the Lubeck Harbor, were in regions where the Coast Guard had issued underwater navigational warnings in the weeks preceding the footage appearing online. Navigational warnings are public notices issued to mariners about hazards, obstructions, or military operations that might affect safe passage. They're published through the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency and distributed to commercial vessels, fishing fleets, and recreational boaters. Most are routine, dredging operations, damaged buoys, unexploded ordnance from old military ranges. But between May 15th and June 30th, 2023, the Coast Guard issued 9 warnings for waters off the coast of Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. The language was vague. Uncharted submerged objects, potential underwater obstructions. Mariners advised to exercise caution in depths below 50 meters. No specifics, no locations precise enough to avoid, just broad advisories covering hundreds of square kilometers of open water, telling Chuan Min to be careful without explaining why. That's unusual. Standard navigational warnings include coordinates, depth ranges, and descriptions of the hazard. Wrecks get mapped, pipelines get charted, even drifting cargo containers are tracked and reported with enough detail that vessels can navigate around them. These warnings offered nothing actionable, just caution. As if the Coast Guard knew something was in the water, but couldn't or wouldn't define it. Jacob Carlisle's final stream occurred 15 kilometers off the coast of Portland, Maine, in an area covered by one of those warnings. The advisory had been issued 9 days before his broadcast. It referenced possible submerged obstructions at depths between 40 and 90 meters, exactly the range where Carlisle was fishing when his stream cut out. The Lubeck Harbor sits at the mouth of a bay that received 2 separate warnings in early June. Both cited uncharted underwater activity and advised vessels to report unusual surface or subsurface contacts to the nearest Coast Guard station immediately. Unusual contacts, not debris, not marine life. Contacts. That's language borrowed from naval terminology, something detected on sonar or radar that doesn't match known classifications. It's the word used when you don't know what you're tracking, but you know something's there. And the instruction to report immediately suggests the Coast Guard was actively collecting data, not warning mariners away from a known hazard, asking them to document encounters with something unidentified. which means the advisories weren't about protecting civilians from danger. They were about gathering intelligence on something the Coast Guard was already aware of but couldn't classify. Then the footage started appearing, and within days, it was gone. We don't have internal Coast Guard communications. We don't have records of what was reported by the mariners who followed those instructions and called in sightings. But we have the timeline: warnings issued, encounters documented, footage deleted, warnings quietly discontinued. By mid-July, the advisories stopped. No explanation, no follow-up, no notice that the hazards had been cleared or that conditions had changed. The warnings simply expired and weren't renewed. As if whatever the Coast Guard had been tracking was no longer a concern or no longer something they wanted the public watching for. Freedom of Information requests filed for records related to those warnings returned heavily redacted documents. One response included a 2-page incident summary with every substantive paragraph blacked out except for a header reading "Unidentified submerged contact, multiple reports, June 2023. The rest was ink. A second request, filed specifically for communication logs between Coast Guard stations and civilian vessels during the advisory period, was denied entirely. The justification cited exemptions for information that could reasonably be expected to interfere with ongoing enforcement proceedings and operational records that could compromise security. Enforcement proceedings, not search and rescue, not environmental monitoring, enforcement. That language implies an active investigation or interdiction effort, something with legal or regulatory authority behind it, not passive observation. Which raises the question, what were they enforcing? What law applies to unidentified submerged contacts in U.S. territorial waters? There isn't one. Not for unknown marine life. Not for unclassified phenomena. The Coast Guard's mandate covers smuggling, illegal fishing, environmental violations, and national security threats. None of those categories fit something that surfaces near boats and looks at cameras. Unless the Coast Guard was operating under a classification we don't have access to. Unless there's a protocol for encounters like this that isn't publicly disclosed. That possibility is not speculative. The U.S. Navy maintains policies for reporting and documenting unidentified submerged objects, USOs in internal terminology, that date back to the Cold War. The policies were developed to distinguish between foreign submarines, sonar malfunctions, and genuine unknowns. Most reports are classified, most are never made public, and the criteria for what qualifies as worth investigating versus worth ignoring are not available through FOIA. If the Coast Guard has adopted similar protocols, if there's a reporting structure for aquatic encounters that don't fit known categories, then the deletion of civilian footage starts to look less like random suppression and more like operational cleanup, not a conspiracy to hide the unknown, a procedure to manage documentation of something already documented internally. The Lubeck security upgrade supports that interpretation. A small town harbor doesn't need federal contracted surveillance unless federal authorities have a reason to monitor it. The firm that replaced the old camera system, Triton Maritime Security Solutions, based in Norfolk, Virginia, lists the Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Protection, and Naval Facilities Engineering Command among its clients. They specialize in perimeter security for sensitive installations and monitoring of maritime approaches to strategic assets. Lubeck, Maine is not a strategic asset. It's a fishing village with a population of 1,300. The harbor handles lobster boats and recreational vessels. There's no naval presence, no offshore infrastructure, no reason for Homeland Security adjacent contractors to install upgraded surveillance unless that harbor had become a location of interest. And it became a location of interest on June 27th when something surfaced at 3:17 a.m. in full view of a security camera, held its position long enough to be recorded, and then disappeared. By June 29th, the footage was scrubbed from the internet. By mid-July, the old camera system was gone, replaced by infrastructure that reports to entities with federal clearance. That's not reactive scrambling, that's containment. Controlled, procedural, efficient containment executed by people who knew exactly what they were doing because they'd done it before. The speed matters. Platforms don't remove content in under 2 hours without internal flags or external requests routed through official channels. Automated systems can act fast, but coordinated suppression across YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Reddit, and Twitch requires either shared databases or direct communication between platform moderation teams and outside authorities. We know that infrastructure exists. Social media companies maintain partnerships with law enforcement and federal agencies for rapid response to specific content, child exploitation, terrorist material, imminent threats to public safety. Those partnerships include dedicated portals where authorized personnel can submit takedown requests that bypass standard user reporting queues. If maritime agencies, Coast Guard, Naval Intelligence, NOAA, or another entity with jurisdictional authority have access to those portals, they could flag content in real time. An upload appears. It's scanned for keywords, geolocation tags, visual markers. A match triggers a priority review. Within minutes, a request goes out. Within hours, the content is gone. That system would explain the speed. It would explain the consistency, and it would explain why none of the platforms issued specific policy violations because the removals weren't based on public guidelines. They were based on requests from entities with authority to classify certain material as sensitive without explaining why. The civilian uploaders wouldn't know. The platform moderators might not even know. They'd just see a priority flag, process the removal, and move on. Clean, bureaucratic, invisible. And if that system has been operational for years, if this is standard protocol for footage of unidentified aquatic phenomena, then the June 2023 sequence wasn't an anomaly. It was a spike. A temporary increase in documentation that overwhelmed the usual suppression mechanisms, allowing a few clips to stay online long enough to be noticed before the system caught up and erased them. Which means this has happened before, and it's happening now. Footage is being captured, flagged, removed, and forgotten on a routine basis. Most of it never reaches public awareness. Most uploaders assume they violated a policy they don't understand and move on. The documentation vanishes into the gap between what civilians see and what authorities acknowledge. The only reason we know about these 7 videos is because they appeared during a compressed time frame and were noticed by people who saved evidence before it could be fully erased. But for every piece of footage that gets archived, discussed, and analyzed, how many disappear without anyone noticing? The Coast Guard's navigational warnings stopped in mid-July. The security upgrades in Lubeck were completed by early August. By September, there were no active advisories for unusual underwater activity off the New England coast. No public statements, no follow-up reports, just silence. And the quiet, institutional certainty that someone, somewhere, is still watching the water. Using saved screenshots, cached forum posts, and fragmented descriptions from the handful of viewers who saw the footage before deletion, a pattern emerges, not in where these encounters happened, but in what they showed. The figures surfaced vertically, not breaching like dolphins, not bobbing like seals, rising smoothly, shoulders first, the way a person stands up in shallow water, except these sightings occurred in depths ranging from 15 to 90 meters. They held position without visible effort, no treading water, no movement to maintain buoyancy, just suspension, motionless, as if standing on something that wasn't there. And in at least 5 of the 7 cases, they turned toward the camera, not drifted with current, turned, oriented themselves deliberately until they faced the lens directly, then held that position long enough to be recorded. That's not animal curiosity. That's recognition. These weren't random sea creatures startled by boats. These were beings that understood what cameras were, knew they were being filmed, and in several cases appeared to acknowledge the observation before disappearing. The footage is gone, scrubbed from servers, removed from platforms, erased from archives. But the questions remain. Why were these specific clips deleted within hours, across sites that don't share moderation systems? Why did uploaders vanish, accounts terminate, and witnesses go silent? Whether this represents institutional containment, algorithmic recognition of prohibited material, or something stranger, one thing is certain. Someone decided these moments couldn't stay visible. Keep your recordings backed up. And remember, just because something gets deleted doesn't mean it wasn't real.